No, I said 6.1 out of 10.
It's good, yeah.
No, that's not a good score.
No, it's above 5. 5 is mediocre.
5.1 out of 10. Then I changed mine.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Archive Podcast.
Episode 12. The first ever episode with a guest.
With a guest, Mr. Seth Manley, everyone.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man.
So let's just take a step back for one. Number one, I am 5'7". I'm just going to be honest. I am 5'7", a solid 5'7". Caleb is like
6'4".
6'4", and I am taller than him at the moment in this episode.
Listen, okay, here's the thing. So we have, this is our old kitchen table. Mm-hmm. We have 2 more of those chairs. I just didn't bring them because I apparently don't have enough forethought to envision this.
And so you're in an office chair, and we are seeing eye to eye right now. I like this.
So here's the thing. Before we get started, when Whitley asks me how tall I think someone is, I think everyone under 6'1" looks the same.
Yeah.
So it's like the other day, I was talking to a buddy of mine, and it came up how tall I was. I was like, dude, I thought you were 5'11". He was like, man, quit being mean to me. He's a solid 5'6". And I was like, I'm sorry, everyone that's under that height, they all look the same height to me. So I'm giving points, though, to people who maybe aren't as tall. That sounds so elitist. Oh, my gosh, I'm so sorry.
I feel good right now. I feel like I am a little taller sitting next to you at the moment.
All right, so let's go through the drink lineup for today. Seth, why don't you start us out?
You got the Liquid Death sparkling water, buried alive.
6.1 out of 10.
Wow.
Agreed.
Really?
What are you taking?
No, I said 6.1 out of 10.
It's good, yeah.
No, that's not a good score.
No, it's above 5. 5 is mediocre.
5.1 out of 10. Then I changed my.
Okay, if you adjust your timing scale, I'm going to say still a 6.1.
Center Glass Coffee, Louisville, Kentucky Roastery.
Also, okay, so sticking with the theme, I'm on tea today because it's after 2 p.m. This is, what is it? British Lavender from Smith, which is also a Kentucky company.
Did not know
Smith
that.
they're a Kentucky tea company. So, good stuff. Well, you guys ready to jump in?
Ready?
100%.
So, Seth, why don't you start us out just a little bit? Tell us what it is that you do, and then I think that will nicely frame up the conversation we're about to have.
Yeah. So I work at Campbellsville University. I'm the Special Projects Videographer. That's my title. It's kind of a weird title, but it just kind of covers everything. Mostly film for the president. So he does like monthly videos, just kind of giving updates about campus and what's going on. Like we just shot a homecoming video yesterday for October. And then we got the trustees meeting coming up. So they like to do like, instead of just PowerPoint presentations, each like department does videos, which is a lot better, but it's a lot going on. And then the rest of it is just lots of random stuff, mainly social media. Those are the really fun ones. We got this series called Chapel Chats with our friend Jacob. He just asks random questions after every chapel on Wednesdays. And then we've started doing lots of different series, which have been really fun to do. But yeah, that's the main ones.
And you've been working there at Campbellsville University for?
I've been there 5 years now.
5 years.
Yeah.
And we both come from backgrounds of working actually in school, corporational settings as well. I worked at Campbellsville with Seth, not really like hand in hand, but we did a lot of the same stuff at Campbellsville. You worked in a school district here in LaRue County for a few years. And so we all three have backgrounds in I call it corporate setting, just working for like in a company or a school district doing creative work. And so I think today we want to talk a little bit about how do you even get your foot in the door in a corporate setting doing creative work as a full-time job?
Yeah.
Fair enough?
Yeah.
So let's break this conversation down a little bit because I think if it can be really practical, I'm imagining someone coming out of high school. So that's like a really easy one. And they've got a lot of passion, not a lot of experience. Maybe they have their hands on some gear. Maybe they're, I was actually talking to somebody yesterday on a shoot, and their son had just received his first DSLR from his uncle, who's an avid shooter. And so let's talk about that guy. So that's his first exposure. He's getting ready to graduate high school. All the passion, starting to get some experience. He's apparently doing, and this is really cool, doing some like athletic department videos for his local high school that he attends, like homecoming, things like that. So what are some things then that he can begin doing to get his foot in the door of doing it? Let's think of two scenarios. One, for his own school district after he graduates, so while he's in college coming back and doing projects, or maybe he wants to get his foot in the door in college.
Yeah.
What you got?
I definitely just doing, like, for me, like I did lots of free videos just for everybody starting out. Don't be afraid to do that. But that's kind of how I got into Campbellsville. Because my friends had graduated and they got jobs there. And then I was trying to find a job after graduating Asbury. So I was looking around, didn't really find anything in Campbellsville. But I couldn't find any video ones. And then we just my friend talked to his boss and kind of mentioned me and was like, they're wanting to get into more media stuff. So I did a couple like announcement videos for him and then kind of got in the door there, and that's how I got that job. But yeah, just doing everything. Doing those free videos or just cheaper ones even. And then just practicing every day, just capturing life. That's how I really got started in video. Just always practicing and then just doing all of it with excellence, like every 100%.
Yeah.
All the time.
I feel like we had our businesses like as a standalone, and we were just kind of capturing what we love to do, all three of us. And then at some point, the person we knew had an opportunity, like, hey, this video creation job is opening up.
Yeah.
Who do I know? Oh, I know the guy who does it for love, does it for passion. And you're kind of the same way. I'm the same way, especially with our introductions to Campbellsville. We're doing it for fun, and then it's kind of about who you know from there. And we've talked about this, how to have a clientele, like how to land your dream client, be the person who people want to work with. And I think that's a little bit of how you get your foot into the door, is you have your passion, which is videography, but more than anything, it's you have relationships of when things open up, like people are thinking of you.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's how it kind of started for all three of us, really.
I think there's an element there where my advice, like if someone was wanting to get into it, would be understand the system of how this works, because there is a pattern for everybody. It starts out where you develop enough skill to where your piece looks good, and then you volunteer to make that for a small niche group. Maybe it's a nonprofit, maybe it's, I don't know, like a local church, a YMCA group, whatever. If they're impressed with it, right, then they're going to put it on Facebook. And then their friends are going to see it. And somebody in that comment section is going to say, wow, who did this? You need to be ready to respond when that person DMs you. That opportunity will come. If it hasn't come yet, you just rinse and repeat that process right there. And because either one, it's not getting to enough people, or two, it's not good enough yet. But then you just keep climbing after that. That's quite literally how the entire process works. No one, at least to my personal knowledge, has blown up after one good video that they've made 3 months into making videos.
Yeah.
Like, you just got to be willing to be in it for the long haul. And I guarantee you this, your videos are already better than you think they are, especially if you have like a self-critical, voice in your mind, but just keep going.
And I think the power of like internships. So you told me this the other day, y'all are looking for a student to take over like some social media stuff. Is that correct?
Yeah, they're hiring like a couple students to help with social media and I think video.
Yeah.
So,
I feel like just that, like so many companies right now are wanting to hire student interns, and that is a phenomenal way to get your foot in the door, especially with just social media. You don't even have to have knowledge of like the video camera side of things or the photography side of things. It's just content creation through behind the scenes, through reels on Instagram, Facebook, shorts on YouTube. Being able to have a creative eye just with an iPhone is one of the most useful ways to get your foot in the door right now. I want to fire a couple questions at you, if that's okay. What do you feel like is the importance of having and we talked about this a couple episodes ago, a personal brand? And when I say this, I mean an entity aside from your corporate job. Do you feel there is an importance of having your own thing outside of that corporate job, that full-time job, like you have JSM Productions.
Yeah.
What is the importance of someone that wants to do this full-time, of having that separate thing?
I mean, not really exactly sure. It's pretty important to me, just like more just for having something else to do on the side. Like, 'cause some days can get kind of boring with the president's videos and things. It's more just creative outlet for me, because I'm not really exactly looking just to go freelance like you guys all the time, which is there's pros and cons of. But I mean, even just my personal Instagram. Y'all talked about, I did this vlog series in June where I did a vlog every day.
That was awesome.
And it was kind of crazy. Just people just liked watching. I was really surprised like how many people wanted to just watch it every day.
Yeah. And do you feel like having that thing just as a creative outlet helped your corporate job, like you at your corporate job?
Yeah, I think it definitely did. It's just more like get your spirit back and get your brain thinking about different shots and ideas, and yeah.
I think one of the coolest things about your story is that you were kind of looking for this opportunity and it showed up. Yeah. So talk to me about what was the content you were putting out at that time looking like. So obviously someone had to have seen something you made to be like, oh yeah, this guy could do it.
Yeah.
So talk to me about that, because that might be really helpful for other people to latch onto. A lot of times that jump from not paid to paid is really murky, especially if you're trying to navigate it. So what were the types of pieces that you were putting out right before that?
Before that, I was probably right before that. Mostly it's just personal, like vlogs and things, just different trips, and then I did some just for my church back home, more like, I guess, kind of testimonials. My favorite type of style is documentary, so that's what I'm really drawn to. So that definitely helped, because that's kind of what they're looking for, that corporate style video. And then just learning. I just got out of Asbury, so I had like all kinds of projects I'd just been posting all the time.
I like that. Yeah. I want to talk a little bit. Maybe we can go through one by one, because I think this is very important for anyone wanting to get into the content creation space. What are the pros and cons of working in a corporate setting, full-time job, versus the pros and cons of having your own business?
This is great.
Because the more I am on my own, the more I see more pros in the corporate setting, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah.
That surprises me.
And I think it's just because, like, and I'm not saying I see more pros in the corporate world compared to being on your own doing freelance. I just see that there are a lot more pros than I once saw when I was in it.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So I'll just start off and give y'all a few. I think the pros of being on your own, of course, is the flexibility of having your own schedule, of saying yes and saying no to what you want to do and what you don't want to do. Now, I think the cons are you can't really ever take your foot off the gas. And with that becomes a lot of creative burnout. When you have creative burnout, when you're on your own, you kind of don't get to just say no and not do work. You have to keep going, because if you don't keep going, then your clientele may slow down. Now, in the corporate world, I think one of the pros is that you have a clear vision typically whenever you get hired. Like, the company will sit you down and say, hey, here's what we want from you. And then even in most settings now, companies have a creative director on top of the person creating the content. So not only do you have yourself, who is the person producing the content, you have someone else feeding you ideas of what content to create. Now, sometimes you are both people. I think that's how you get your foot in the door, kind of be the creative director and the producer of the content. But I think having a team in a company is one of the biggest pros, and that there's not all this pressure to do everything yourself, from coming up with the marketing plan, coming up with the advertising plan, producing the content, and then everything that comes after that. I think that is one of the biggest cons of being on your own, is like you have to be that jack of all trades, that all in one, and it can get pretty creative you can get creative burnout pretty quickly through that.
Oh yeah.
Seth, talk to me what about, because I think what is cool about your position, because I kind of carrying off yours, is you are like the president's D-Rock, right?
Yeah.
So like I think of when you were describing that, I was like, oh, that's like D-Rock, which was, so he popularized, was it 2014, 2015 maybe? Mm-hmm. Gary Vee, basically has a videographer reach out to him and offers to make work for free. I think that's the way the story goes. Ends up, that's D-Rock, who we get introduced to, and then it just kind of blows up this phenomenon of having someone go around, helping you document whatever your mission is, whether it's your daily life or it's the business that you're running or a mix of the two. And what I think is really fascinating about what you're saying is that is becoming more and more and more, even nearly 10 years later, a thing, and people don't even bat an eye at it now, So talk to me a little bit about what it's like to work with that type of creative vision where you're bringing the words or the vision of someone else to life and building that bridge towards the intended audience.
Yeah. So when he first came, I think he's been there for like 3 years. So when he first came, it was like D-Rock. I was like following him around for like the whole year pretty much. But so he got really good at just like ignoring me and just talking to people and doing all the handshakes and stuff. But it is really nice. But the best part probably for being in this world is you kind of get like a box to work out of. Because like for me, it's always harder for me to like come up with ideas. Like everyone else that I work with just like pops them off. But it takes me like a while just to come up. So it's great having like a script to go off of, or at least a rough idea that he might want for a video. But yeah, I really like that. And then, yeah.
It's awesome. So when let's say he comes to you with an idea, how do you take that idea and begin to flesh it out into what will be a finished piece?
Yeah. So let's see, like the homecoming video coming up. We kind of picked out like the top events that are coming up, and so thankfully I have like all kinds of B-roll from the last couple of years, so that makes it super easy for me, even if something I didn't have. Mm-hmm. So, because like if it was like you coming,
Right.
that hired you or something, like it would be super hard. You would have to
you almost
ask her.
You almost like double and triple your usable portfolio the longer you stay at in a position, and it makes creating content 5 times easier, pretty much.
Oh, yeah, it's always so easy. Someone asks me for like a photo or a clip or something, I just know exactly where it's at. But yeah, it makes it much easier. And then it's not we don't go super in depth with storyboards, or we'll make it like a simple script. And he's also like a performer. He was like an opera singer. He did some of that. Mm-hmm. So he's great on camera. So that makes it really easy as well to just roll with it and just kind of get creative with it. That's also like they've seen doing everything with excellence has helped them just trust me more. So I get a little more creative freedom. Like even the other day I was trying to get them to schedule one of these monthly videos. Mm-hmm. So I kind of made like a rough script just using ChatGPT. But I changed a couple things, but they just kind of took it. I was like, oh, all right. So I probably wouldn't recommend using ChatGPT all the time for a script, but
hey.
Well, listen, here's the beauty though of what you're describing, Seth, is there is business, I think, at least in my experience, comes down to just a few things that are very basic. One, you have the ability to execute on a service or a product, right? And in your case, bringing a vision to life for a university president. That is no small thing. 2, it's the integrity to follow through to match up with that ability to execute. And then 3, I think it really comes down to like initiative. So like when you said the ChatGPT thing, man, I have clients who are using that. Yeah. And the beauty of it is the way they see it is like, we're just using this to get started. And so I think the cool thing about you and what you're describing is your ability to execute, the integrity that your abilities are going to be what they say they're going to be, and then man, like that self-starting initiative, man, I don't know if you could, like that's important no matter what you're doing, whether you're on your own or in a corporate setting. So,
yeah.
What do you think? What would be like the biggest con that you've experienced over these last 5 years of being in a position with a company or with a school that that someone may want to think about before they get in that position?
Probably, I mean, the flexibility is definitely in there. But thankfully, like we have a separate athletics team. So their schedule's crazy. I wouldn't want that. But so mine's more just Monday through Friday, which is not bad. But definitely that. And then pros, it's a pro and con, is the consistent salary, but it's kind of, you cap off.
Right.
You can't go do extra projects.
So maybe
Things like
let's stop there and talk about that then for a second. Let's say you've been in a space for a long time and you're kind of wrestling with that like cap out salary. What can you do? And this is just kind of open for everybody. What can we do to approach leadership in a corporate setting and say, hey, like, here's what I feel like I'm worth. How can I get to that point?
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I think a lot of that just comes down to how comfortable you are up here first. Because a lot of times those conversations are, anyone that's been in leadership for 5 minutes is experienced at having people approach them, because money is not taboo to people in leadership. Money is just a resource. So the ability to allocate it then is just a constant negotiation with how much do you have, how much can you deploy against getting this particular mission done in the service of students or the sale of a product. And then I think there is a little bit of you roll the dice if you have a leader who's insecure. Now, I've had only one probably person I've ever worked for who was deeply insecure. And so it was never a conversation that was objective. Everything was emotional. However, what I will say is, man, when I worked at the school system, it was great. The superintendent there, it was just always really honest conversations. Now, granted, when you go to work for a school system, no one goes to a school system to work for the money, right? But it was enough for that season to get by, and it gave me the flexibility to begin the firm that I have now, And so there is that kind of trade-off there. But I think if you're going to approach someone in leadership, just understand, man, as long as you're straightened up here and understand that it's okay, it's a conversation that happens all the time in leadership, and just ask for what you need, but also know that you have been needing to prove that you're worth that for a good amount of time. So, it's the idea of, I want to say it was Seth Godin, but I'm not so sure if it's him or Cal Newport, be so good they can't ignore you.
And I think in a corporate world, this is like the most practical thing. If you have been in a setting in a creative position for 5 years, so you now have 5 years of results. Now, for some people, that's not a good thing. Some people that is. Like, you can say, hey, here's what this looked like before I got here. And for your case, I think like in a school setting, especially a college, like you can say, hey, here's what enrollment was before I got here, and here's what the social media engagement followers, like here's what our views were at. And I've noticed this in the 5 years you've been there, like even the Instagram, if you do the followers by year since you've been there, it's probably doubled at least or tripled since you've been there. And so that's an easy way. Like if you're trying to think of, hey, I'm in this corporate position and I want to make more, otherwise I'm going to have to make a change. Show them the results you've made an impact in over the years you've been there. I think that's one of the easiest ways to get paid what you're worth, is show them results and show them how you've increased their revenue over years.
Let's get into a little bit of how do you market yourself even when you're in a corporate position? So sometimes there are NDAs involved, right? So for those who aren't familiar, NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, that essentially there are certain parts of your work that you can't talk about, right? And particularly in the arena of communications, which all of this kind of falls under the umbrella of, like if you're working on like a building campaign for a university or for a business, like that stuff can't be talked about, in detail until a particular time. But how do you find ways to market yourself, to get your portfolio out there in a way that honors the current organization or business that you're working for, but also says to anybody else who might potentially be looking at you if you want to make a lateral move or if you want to go out on your own? How do you do that?
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, I'm not always like marketing the JSM part every day and posting on Instagram every day. It's more just that word of mouth. I mean, me and my family are going to Banff next week. It's like I'll still make like a little highlight reel and like people will see it and get shares and be like, oh yeah, he does videos. And they'll probably, somebody will reach out, or I get a wedding in a couple weeks. I get like a few of those maybe this year. So like after I post that one, I usually get like a few people DMing me. It's like, hey, how much do you charge for this? And so that's more how I do it. But I definitely, if you really want to do it, be more consistent with it. Like we're gonna work on a project in October, just for fun, little spec ad kind of video. So like that'll be just one way, just to get your name back out there and just show people like a different side, because this will be more of like a short film kind of style instead of like a documentary or highlight video. So that'll be definitely a different vibe, I guess, for us.
Something I think you've been really good at since you have been at Campbellsville is everybody that's worked with you as well has had a good experience. And so what has happened too that I've noticed is all the employees who needed some type of video production outside of the university scale, they've immediately came to you asking for it.
Yeah.
And so then you've been able to profit outside of that realm of the university, and then still get to make more revenue on the side or income on the side doing your own thing because it didn't fall in that university umbrella. And I mean, that's one of the keys too. Whenever you're in a corporate job, there will be opportunities that pop up from the people within that doesn't have to do with your position there, but they still need it. And so then that just becomes a little bit of play money after the fact, because you can have that opportunity that isn't pertaining to your full-time job, but the people inside that you met, it became a thing because of those people that were inside of it.
And I think breaking this down just to being super applicable for someone who's wanting to break out of hobby filmmaking into getting paid for it. And that's what I would, frankly, like tear down the walls of pretension. That's what I would call professional. If someone pays you $5 for a video, welcome to the profession, bro. Like there's just a certain point where, I've seen guys and gals who have been in the game for 6 months make incredible work. And then I've seen people who are very pretentious, braggadocious about their work that have been in it for 2 decades. And quite frankly, I can't understand the storyline of what's going on in their piece. And so that would be kind of like my baseline is like, get into a place where you can say, I'm breaking out of the hobby and into the professional. And then in order to do that, I need to do X, Y, and Z. So like, let's get super applicable here. What are the X, Y, and Z that they need to do?
What you got? You want to start?
Just to get out of the
To get out of how do they break out of the gravitational orbit of the hobbyist?
And make some money.
Yeah. Because listen, here's what we're going to do. Anytime that we made money when we first got started, what did we do? We reinvested it back into the things that we needed, right? And so don't look at it as being selfish. If you struggle with that, it's about reinvesting in yourself. So how do they do it?
Oh yeah, I think the biggest thing, kind of going off what you just said, is just being a kind and loving person, like to everybody. Like that's definitely the biggest thing, I think. Just loving people and just being patient while you're working with them. And then just doing little videos, posting on Instagram, if you like that, or just if you want to make a full film, you just go do it in your backyard with your phone, and then go ask different businesses around your city if they need a commercial, or just if you can do a commercial for them. Just find other people that have the same interests as you. Just kind of bounce ideas off of them and try and work with them.
I think there's a lost art as well in offering or and kind of announcing or posting what you're offering to. I feel like that has become like a weird thing when people say, hey, like, here's what I'm offering when you have a hobby. So like for me, whenever I was doing video for fun and I took that one little step and say, hey, I'm going to start videoing weddings. Is anyone interested? And people actually contacted me. It kind of opened my perspective. I was like, whoa, is this what happens when you say, hey, here's this thing I'm offering and here's how much I'm charging, and then people reach out? Like, I think it's a lost art in filmmaking and photography, because we're not looked at as like a product as much. Because if you have a small business and you have a boutique, there's no shame in saying, hey, $25 for this sweater. But for some reason, we've gotten to this weird thing in content creation where it's become a weird thing to say, hey, here's what I'm offering and here's the price I'm offering it. Because at the end of the day, we're like trying to make this hobby a business. That is how you make a business. You say, here's what I'm offering, here's how much I'm charging, here's what you get. Is anyone interested? And then you start to see like people actually respond to the call of action. Mm-hmm. That's my biggest piece of advice.
Listen, and I'm going to echo off that. So many guys and gals who we talk to in this work don't charge enough because they're uncomfortable with the conversation. And here's my mental calculus. If you have a job that's already paying your bills, you should be unruly, just absolutely wilding out on what you offer to people. Mm-hmm. Because the whole point of pricing, especially in this, is that people will say, well, I mean, you already have the camera. It doesn't really take that much of your time, so why in the world are you charging? And it's like, no, you misunderstand the value proposition here. The value proposition is what will this piece get you to? The value proposition is, what bridge am I building to your audience? And here's the deal. If you have to explain your pricing to a client, walk away.
Yeah, they're probably not the right client.
Walk away. And here's the deal. And this would be like, so my benchmark is I'm not touching anything for less than $1,000, $1,500, mm-hmm. just not doing it. Because here's what I have found. If somebody balks at $1,000, for some reason that's like a benchmark price in people's mind. If someone balks at that, they need it too much. And specifically what I mean by they need it too much is their expectations for what your video will do can never deliver mm-hmm. on even if it's Michael Bay. It can never deliver on their expectations. And so I think there would be my secret hint. Do this math in your brain. Get a job that will just pay the bills that you have, and then just absolutely keep increasing your prices, because what you'll find is the more your prices increase, it'll be clients who can pay that price, and the higher end clients are less problem to deal with. Mm-hmm.
100%. And then it's less work in the long run as well. The more you charge, the less you have to take on, and the higher quality content you can produce for your clients whenever you actually have the time to produce it. Whenever I was starting off, and this was whenever I had a full-time job at Campbellsville as well, I was not charging enough to the people outside that scope. So then I had no time for anything. And the quality of content I was trying to produce wasn't meeting what my expectations were for myself, or my standard for myself. And so I finally got to the point where I was like, oh, I need to charge more. And whenever I started charging more, my quality became better because I had more time to produce it, and I could actually give the client what they wanted compared to taking on more clients for less money and then the quality being diminished.
I have a hot take.
Mm-hmm. I'm ready.
This is going to get me in trouble.
I'm listening.
I might be canceled upon this.
Oh, gosh.
Okay, here's the thing. Walmart. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it is. It just makes me feel a type of way. I think Walmart's great. It's got everything you need in there. I can literally go pick up the things I need for deer season, right, in November, and groceries, and home repair.
And cosmic brownies.
Is there a better dessert than cosmic brownies? Man, I'm for real about to go pick some up on the way home. Anyways, all that to say, but there is something about, I think it's the arrangement of the store. Maybe it's the colors inside, the kind of odd blue that they've got. It's just something about Walmart that just makes me feel a type of way, right? But then I go into Target, and all of a sudden I'm a white girl, and I'm like, I need a pumpkin spice latte. I'm going to go through the dollar section, and I'm going to buy something I don't need. I don't know what that is psychologically, but I think it has something to do with, I know that if I want to make my dollar stretch the farthest, I'm going to go to Walmart, right? There is a value in that, and that's part of their business model too. They're able to scale so big that they can drive prices down and put other people out of business. That is not an opinion, that is researched fact. Target, on the other hand, while they don't have exorbitant prices, there is a little bit more of your dollar's not going to go as far at Target. Mm. But there's this deal about quality and how I associate that in my brain. that I have never thought or talked about as much until this very moment. And I think that that applies to how seriously we take ourselves as filmmakers. It's not to say that there's anything wrong with shopping at Walmart. There's nothing wrong with shopping at Target. There is an association, though, that we make each personally about places where we shop, types of coffee we drink, types of water we drink. I mean, you could have gotten water out of the tap, but you chose Liquid Death, right?
Yeah.
That's more than how much is a Liquid Death? Like $2.95?
Probably.
Yeah. Like there's a reason we make these associations, and I want to say there is something to it that is more than just the brass tacks of what's in the cup. Am I crazy?
No, I think it comes down to the identity of who we are showcasing ourselves. So whatever we want people to see from our brand, we want them to know they can be a part of this. And so if it's us sharing ourselves, like, you know, whenever I share this studio, for example, like I want people to envision what they could portray themselves as if they were in this space. Like when we are trying to get clients in here, I want people, the content I post out of this place, I want people to realize, ooh, I could portray my audience looking like that. And so anytime I make a video in here, like I'm thinking, what does the client see? Because I want them to know they can portray themselves as that to other people. Like if we're trying to get headshots in here, and I think it's the same concept. Like a wedding, for example. This is a funny example. I noticed there's a difference between the guys whenever they're with their guys on the wedding day, and then the moment they're not with their guys, they snap into this like model-esque. And they like want to put on the show for the cameras because they know what it's going to look like on the other side of the camera. Compared to when they're with their guys, like they act like all like kind of awkward and, you know, like they don't know what to do. But once they're like by themselves, they know they need to like snap into it because they want to be perceived a certain way on the camera. Yeah.
It's good, Seth. All I'm saying, man, it's good that you do what you do because I think it like lays out for people. There is opportunity in places like that job that you have now. Am I right in saying it did not exist before you?
No, it just got created.
Yeah. And I think that would be the confidence I would ask younger aspiring filmmakers to have. You know, go into it knowing that if your skills are there, people often, it is not rare for them to create positions because they understand the value of branding. Like, and that's what I think a lot of this comes down to. If this entire conversation is under the umbrella of how do you land a corporate job or a job inside of a larger organization, I think it comes down to your ability to communicate value to them that increases brand awareness, marketing, communications. Like it's all those things. And I think that's what you do so brilliantly. Even when you had us to your office, like you are able to communicate that in a way that makes your work valuable to the university. And I think that's really what I would recommend to people who are looking to get into it.
Mm-hmm. Any closing remarks?
Love people.
Love people, love filmmaking, love it all.
Yeah, man. And I will say on the landing the plane on that note, that does produce the best filmmakers in the game is the people, like you said, you've been saying this like over and over again. Love people, be patient with them, be kind. And all of those things. Because why? Because people who are on camera for the first time or not very often feel very insecure or like not confident, right? And like you give off the vibes of like supportive of like you're here to make this thing successful for the other person. And I think that's cool, man. Mm-hmm. That is a super marketable skill.
It is very genuine.
Yeah.
Well, Seth, thank you for coming on the Archive podcast, the first ever guest.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, and you were actually the first ever guest in the studio too. Well, like your Polaroid is first over there on the wall. So
it's pretty special, man. At least to us too.
It's very special to me.
Yeah,
and I'm glad we could get you on, and we'll get you on another day as well. But thank you guys for watching the Archive podcast or listening if you're on Spotify, and we will see you guys in the next episode.
See ya.
Peace.
I almost said peace for you.
I was closing it out. I was like, just don't feel right.
Man, I'm sorry. That one point, like about 5 minutes before we